At one point in your life, you'll become catastrophically aware of the impermanence of all there is. And you can theorize and ponder its reality as much as you like, but only when you're faced with a tragic manifestation of it will you truly understand it. This visceral comprehension can either be a gift or a curse, all depending on the path you choose at the crossroad of realization. One path is marred by hopelessness, destruction, and the undeniable destructive forces of life. The other path is beautiful. It's filled with enthusiasm and gratitude. And based on this narrow description of the different paths that you can take, it seems obvious what one would choose. Certainly that's the case for a rational agent, but of course, us humans are anything but rational. It is exceedingly easy to fall into despair when one realizes that nothing is stable. And it begs a serious question. Is there anything or anyone that you can truly lean on? Well, in reality, nothing is stable. Everything flows, nothing abides. And any person will see that, or any sensible person will see that trust in such a world is a hopeless endeavor. At some point, it is bound to falter. That means you can't trust your friends, your partner, your government. Even tomorrow begins to look shaky. And the psychoanalysts proclaim that you're not even master in your own house, which means ultimately you're not even able to trust yourself. And so in a house and in a world like that, no wonder people feel awful and mind-numbing despair. That is a scary reality. And unfortunately, it is a world that many people inhabit and grapple with every day. And no wonder it causes anxiety and despair. I mean, I would know. I used to be an inhabitant of that world. I lost my mother as a young teenager, and I spent a considerable time in anguishing despair at the thought of losing my father as well. I had already lost one parent, and so I couldn't possibly convince myself that it wasn't a possibility that I would lose the other. And I simply couldn't stand the scenario of that happening. And I saw my world crumble before me, and everything felt exceedingly dark. Yet, every notion throws a shadow, which in this case is significantly lighter than its counterpart. Because one can just as easily look upon impermanence as the aspect of life which imbues it with significance. In other words, the stakes could not be any higher, and it offers a clue why any gods might be envious of us mortals. One can begin to appreciate how precious every moment that we are afforded are. And when one realizes that one day it'll be no more. And that to offer one's trusts in such a world, being fully aware of its frail nature, is a loving and courageous act. So in reality, these viewpoints are simply two ends of the same pole that we term impermanence. And thus death is the necessary evil which gives rise to the splendor that is life. And one ought to explore both extremes of the pole, making sure not to stop at any one end, because remaining ignorant of the one side is naive, and remaining ignorant of the other is positively destructive. And so coming to terms with this fleeting nature of life is an important aspect of maturation, and in fact it adds an unparalleled richness to life. And in times of trouble, one is well served to recall Abraham Lincoln's favorite saying, "This too shall pass." Being a central theme of life, it is a concept that has been explored in many traditions. In Buddhism, it is termed Anicca and represents one of 3 characteristics of existence. In the Pali Canon, it is expressed in this way: all that has arisen will pass away. In ancient antiquity, it was Heraclitus that put his finger on this concept, quoted earlier, and he famously compared reality to a river, which is always flowing and never the same. And in philosophy, this concept is referred to as becoming. And much like the world is always moving in process and becoming, so are you. Which means you are at liberty to transform into whatever you deem worthy and exciting.